So putting this all together,
Please.
it was measurement, reporting, and technical setup that led us to achieve those gains. So I just want to say that in the first full year, 2019, we were able to increase the revenue by over 900% while growing the investment, the ad spend by 450%.
Hey everyone, and welcome to E-commerce Speaks with ROI Hunter. Today we're speaking with Mike Pruchnicki, who comes to us with experience from being performance marketing lead at the Razor Group and previously the head of paid social at Modivo. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Mike.
Sam, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
So yeah, let me get right into it with you. Can you talk to us a bit about the work you've done as a performance marketing lead when you were at the Razor Group? Let's talk a little bit about the challenges you faced, how you measured success.
Yeah, so I will start with describing the type of company the Razor Group is.
Please.
It's a brand aggregator. So basically, that's a business that buys other e-commerce businesses that sell their products on either some kind of marketplaces like Amazon, or they have their own D2C stores, let's say based on Shopify. So after Razor Group purchases given business, then it tries to scale it in-house with in-house resources, in-house product team, in-house IT team, in-house marketing team. So basically, I was a team lead in the performance marketing team. We were responsible for running performance campaigns across multiple channels for over 10 brands selling on Shopify stores across international markets.
What would you say were some of the most tricky things that you had to face on a day-to-day basis? Like, could you walk us through a day in the life?
Yeah, I think that one of the most tricky things was putting all the data together, because when working with multiple Shopify stores, multiple channels, multiple ad accounts across multiple currencies often, because these were the ad accounts that we took over from the businesses when they were purchased, right? So there were like different setups of measurement, different payment methods, different currencies, different types of campaigns. So starting with it was first fixing the basics, making sure that we've got operational payment methods for each and every ad account, setting consistent naming conventions, making sure that the tracking is set the correct way on every platform and every ad account. And then coming to aggregating all this data together, because as I said, operating with such multiple number of entities, as a performance marketing team lead, I needed to have a way to look at the data in one place for every store, for every channel. So you can imagine that going through all of these dashboards, 10 Shopify stores, 20 ad accounts, and so on, was very time consuming. So we needed to figure out a way to manage that in the beginning.
Did you have any favorite tools that you used for managing that?
Yeah, I think the tool that helped us a lot was Supermetrics, an API connector that let us pull the data from all the platforms that we were using, put them into one place, for example, Google Sheets, and then use some stitching and visualization in order to have a set of dashboards that we are using on a daily basis.
Okay, so it was there was still some manual work involved then to bring it all together, stitch that data together, and be able to assess it all as one?
That's right, but when you did it for the first time and set the right formulas and the right schedules, then it was all automated from that point.
I see, that's great. Is it something that you see would become even easier in the future as AI starts to take over? Like, yeah, I'm really curious how you would imagine AI would come into work like this as we progress.
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously some kind of algorithm to that. You need to pull the data from the right places, then you need to maybe stitch them based on the, let's say, day, and then you put all the data in the corresponding rows from different sources. That's the easiest way. just to use the current date as the connector for all the data. Of course, you can go even deeper and you can go into campaign, ad group, or ad set, or ad level. But that's like another thing. But I think in the basic version, when you stitch the data based on the date, I think the AI could do that in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we're just going to see such ease of usage, hopefully, or just improved performance as it comes in. One thing that I wanted to get into with you was your previous position before the Razor Group. When you were head of social at Modivo, I noticed that you were talking on your LinkedIn about scaling the monthly spend from 5 figures to 7 figures. Without obviously going into too much detail about stuff, can you tell us a little more about that and how you went about that as head of social?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, when I joined Modivo, it was called eObuwie back then, but right now it's Modivo. It was already a big company. It was one of the best known e-commerce companies in Poland, and it was well known, I think, in Central Europe.
Yeah.
It had like a few hundred employees. eObuwie brand was present on, I think, 12 markets, and new markets were being launched. So when I joined, there were only 2 people working in the paid social department, and my role was to take paid social activities to the next level. So there were few key areas that I needed to address in the beginning. So the first one was measurement and reporting. And here it was kind of similar to the Razor Group, where you had like multiple ad accounts, multiple Google accounts, Google Analytics accounts, and you needed to stitch that data together. So that was one thing. The other area was technical setup. It was related to pixel improvements, especially tracking product interactions more precisely. Also, we needed to touch up product fit a little bit. The other key area was managing relations with stakeholders, because that was also a very important part to make them informed about our progress and how we are doing.
Sure.
And then finally communicating business goals to the team. That's also important part, like translating what comes from above my position to the team that I was working with. And let me go a little deeper into
Please, yeah.
into the measurement part. So we started with introducing of consistent nomenclature of the campaigns, ad sets, and ads that we are using. And because before I came, it was a bit of it wasn't as organized as I wanted it to be, because I was already thinking that the data needs to be pretty cleaned up in order for us to use it on aggregated level in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, even for a lot of tools, you have to make sure that your data is clean to the point where it's usable.
Exactly. And the other area that was related to that was implementation of automatic UTM tagging. Right now, I think it's a standard for every ad account, but back then it wasn't as popular. And when I came, the company was still using manual tagging for most of the campaigns, which was on one hand time consuming, and it was also prone to errors when using manual UTM tagging. And another part related to that was automatic Facebook and Google Analytics data merging at the scale. So when we already had the clean data, we had automated UTM tracking, then we were ready to pull the data into one place and stitch it together. And then at the final point, we were able to collect data, draw conclusions, and introduce some changes to the campaigns, to the activities we were running. But I think what the viewers and listeners to the podcast would like to know, because this is just fixing the basics. What gave us, big improvement after implementing all of these basics was making sure that our measurement was perfect. And I want to say again that making sure that the product interactions were tracked correctly. And it's not about, reading the documentation, the metapixel documentation back then, because then there wasn't such thing like CAPI. It wasn't only reading that, but also understanding and making sure that we apply these methods to our business case. So that was something that gave us a huge boost in performance back then. So putting this all together, it was measurement, reporting, and technical setup that led us to achieve those gains. So I just want to say that in the first full year, 2019, we were able to increase the revenue by over 900% while growing the investment, the ad spend by 450%. So we not only increased the scale of revenue by 10 times, we also increased the return on ad spend by 2 times by using those methods.
Yeah, I mean, because I know it's tough to keep it even consistent while you're actually scaling revenue by that much. So the fact that you're able to improve it with that is amazing.
Yeah, and in upcoming years, of course, the growth wasn't as dramatic like 900%, but it was
Well,
still
sure.
200% in upcoming years. And then, of course, we reached at some point after a few years, we reached that stagnation period. But the first, I think, 3 years when I was in the company, it was this explosive growth for a few years.
Now, did you notice over the time that you were there, much of an evolution in social media? Was there a lot of change happening? Like what were the biggest things that you saw changing over that period?
Yeah, so I think the first one and the one that um, influences performance marketing the most were privacy concerns and regulations.
Sure.
These were the times when iOS 14, the dreaded iOS 14 was introduced and changed a lot in the
Hence
way we run the campaigns, right?
hence bringing in CAPI and all of the ways to connect the additional signals.
Exactly. And speaking of, managing the relations with stakeholders, that was one of the challenges that I mentioned. It was getting them on board to, let's say, putting some IT resources into actually implementing CAPI.
Really?
Because exactly. Because in a company like this, we had internal IT department, and
Yeah.
they are always busy. They always have a lot to do with the e-commerce platform and so on. And one of the most important things when implementing CAPI was getting the C-level on board. And
Did they just not see the value in it, or they didn't want to take the risk of connecting
I
that?
mean, I think after we presented it in a very convenient way, they
Sure.
saw that, but it was the job that we needed to do to tell them about the big influence the CAPI would have on our business, especially given those privacy changes.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, now CAPI has become pretty much a must-have. Just we're a little late on this in case anyone is unaware what CAPI stands for. It's Conversions API. It's the way that Meta has connected additional signals to the campaigns for targeting so that you can still send the right products to people while respecting the privacy concerns that come from Apple's iOS 14 update. Did I get that? Is there anything I'm missing from that you would add for CAPI?
No, I think you described it perfectly. And back then we were one of the first Meta customers in Poland that were implementing that tool.
Really?
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like this is something that's going to be like if you are a retailer out there and you haven't implemented CAPI yet, we're still waiting for Google to sunset third-party cookies on Chrome. So once that happens, it'll be even more essential because you're just going to lose out on all of the data you were collecting from there before.
That's right, and the clock is ticking all the time.
Yes. Yes, we're moving closer and closer to the privacy protections that we need as users, which just means we need to find new solutions as advertisers that will take all of that into account.
Yeah, and also coming back to the social
Yeah,
media and how it's evolving. So the first one was privacy concerns and regulations. The other
sure.
one is social commerce. I think it's a big part of every major social media platform right now. Meta and TikTok are trying to move the purchase behavior from outside the platform into the platform to make the process as frictionless as possible for the users, and also to keep the most data, because given those privacy changes, they also want to have that in their platform.
So they want to keep the user data. It's like how years ago everyone was switching from websites to apps to make sure that all the user data was staying within one place rather than gathering it.
Exactly.
Now people want to make sure they can stay on the website, keep the users there for as long as possible. I mean, that's Meta's discovery commerce thing, get people on the site so they discover the next thing they want to buy.
And,
Please.
and one of the big things related to that is that, let's say in Razor Group, of course, I said that we are operating on D2C stores, mostly on Shopify, but the biggest scale of business was happening outside D2C channel. It was on the marketplaces like Amazon. And one of the key challenges was supporting the Amazon sales, but without having this data flowing from Amazon to Meta. But recently I read that Meta and Amazon had, I think, some kind of deal that would enable maybe some exchange of the data between the marketplace and the platforms. So if it's going to happen, it's going to be big because, I think that the way the e-commerce industry is evolving, it's evolving more and more towards the marketplaces.
Yeah.
Instead of individual shops, right?
And that is, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the biggest challenges there is making sure that you have enough data to inform those campaigns since it's on the platform. Because like you're saying, if Amazon and Meta are making a deal, in order to get that data there, that's because if they're just doing all of their operations on Meta, they can't connect the data they would get from their Amazon sales there.
Exactly.
So they can use it to inform campaigns, which is actually, that's one of the things at ROI Hunter that we've been working on, is connecting those additional signals from not just a place like Google, but from custom sources as well, so that you can bring all of that into your Meta campaigns and enhance something like CAPI.
Yeah, great to hear that. And you are clearly ahead of the curve in that area, and you are setting new trends.
Now, one thing I wanted to get into it with you in terms of staying informed in the industry. As somebody who comes from a content background like myself, I'm always interested in how people in roles like yours like to keep up with the industry. Like, what are your favorite ways to stay informed?
I think one of my favorite ways is listening to podcasts related to our industry. Of
You
course,
hear that, listeners? Yeah,
exactly. That I think that's the best way, because podcast is this kind of long form I don't know, conversation
yeah,
that there is this part of interaction between the host and the guest, and that you won't get in some kind of written interview. So
absolutely.
I think podcasts are the best way to gather new information and stay on top of the newest trends.
Do you have any favorites that you listen to? Like, I know I listen to 2X e-commerce, but beyond that, I'm always looking for more.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Meta, I
Mhm.
think John Loomer podcast is one of the biggest ones and
Okay,
the
great.
oldest ones. When it comes to broader marketing, I think there's this, I think it's called CMO podcast.
Mm.
I'm not sure if I recall the name right,
Sounds
but
really familiar, actually. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So now, is it just podcasts? Like, if you're looking to go and research something in particular, like let's say you're looking for new tactics to try for 2024, something happening on social, would you go seeking a webinar, an ebook, a video?
I think so. On one hand, I'm trying to stay connected and in contact with my colleagues from
Sure.
the industry, and we just exchange information. And the other area, I think, are performance marketing communities posted on social media groups or Discord servers. And this is one of the another trends in social media, like the growth of niche communities.
Okay, so niche communities. What are some examples of what you mean by that?
I mean, so one of these would be like a community of Facebook ad buyers, or I don't know, Google ad buyers, or performance marketers, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would call that a niche community.
So really, it's all coming back to the social networks. Then it's where you're selling the stuff, or where you're getting the information from networking
Exactly,
people on how to sell the stuff. Huh?
exactly.
Speaking of the e-commerce industry, we've been talking a lot with our clients at ROI Hunter about having a renewed focus on profitability. Because right now, with the state of the recession, interest rates, the economy, it's no longer as much of a growth focused economy. People are looking more for sustainability now. They're looking for ways to have those real world actions affecting their performance. What are your thoughts on this? What have you experienced in your roles?
Yeah, I think, and also one big factor that we need to take into account is that previously, as you said, everyone was focused on growing because the venture capital money was very easily accessible for the
Take some
companies.
money, cheap
Exactly.
capital. Yeah,
Right now, it's not as easy as it used to be to get funding. So that's why there is this also big shift to profitability.
absolutely.
And I think in that case, it's more about sending the right data to the platforms, right?
Mhm.
Because on one hand, you can, with let's use meta ads as an example. As a purchase value, you could send the, and let's say, gross revenue that you generated from given purchase.
Yeah,
But with little tweaks, you would be able to pass maybe your contribution margin of that given products that
mhm.
you were selling. So then instead of optimizing for the volume of the purchases, the revenue, then you would be optimizing towards the highest contribution margin possible, and then using
Absolutely.
objectives and optimizations like value optimization for meta.
Mhm.
Maybe you can achieve some outstanding results in that field.
And, I mean, again, not to keep talking pitching ROI Hunter, but that's something that we've been getting into a lot is really optimizing toward greater profitability. By doing that data sharing type stuff, getting the margins from your merchandising department, connecting it with your marketing department so that you can actually filter your products and start promoting them based on the ones that are going to have the greatest gross margin. Sorry, the greatest, yeah, gross profit for your company.
Yeah, and I agree that Roy Hunter is a great tool for that, because if we didn't have Roy Hunter, then it would require us to maybe do some custom solution in-house that would
Yep.
obviously take time. And knowing that IT departments usually have other priorities, it wouldn't be as effective as just
That's
using ROI Hunter.
That's the thing. There are things you can do to find that profitability, profit by like product by product. But in terms of, yeah, scalable solution, being able to actually filter your catalog and be like, okay, let's find my most profitable products and we'll promote those and bring that margin into me is, yeah, it's something that is better to have a tool for so that people aren't stitching together the data their entire day.
And also, speaking of ROI Hunter,
Yeah.
the things that we did in the beginning at eObuwie and Modivo, this pulling the data using supermetrics and stitching it together, it's also
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
of the features of ROI Hunter.
Mhm.
And who knows, maybe if we started using your tool a little sooner, maybe it would be even easier for us to have that data available.
Well, yeah. Now, what was your experience like working with ROI Hunter back when you were at Modivo?
I mean, as I said, there was a point when we reached this kind of stagnation point,
Sure. Sure.
and we needed to look for some outside of the company solutions. And I think ROI Hunter was a perfect fit for us, especially given the additional features regarding like passing the margin of the products to the product feed,
Definitely.
or having this Google Analytics and metadata at one place automatically updated. It was, still our dashboards did something very similar, but it was way more convenient to media buyers to have that on the platform and in interactive way. And I think the other big feature that convinced us to use ROI Hunter
Mhm.
was the feature to customize the images in our feed. And it was a
Definitely. Yeah.
big decision point for us.
I'm glad to hear that. Uh, the last thing that I wanted to talk with you, Mike, about, which I'm asking all of our guests, is just if there was any advice that you would want to give to e-commerce retailers listening, what would that advice be?
I mean, I think one of the most important ones is making sure that your measurement, your pixel setup, your CAPI setup, your first party data usage
Yeah,
is on the highest possible level. Because with the evolving privacy changes, you need to have your data right in order to achieve basically anything.
yeah. If you can't target people correctly, you're not going to sell your products. And
And also there will be like a bigger and bigger focus towards the first party data as
absolutely,
third party data just basically fades away. And on the platforms, you can see this evolution towards broad targeting, automated campaigns, these kind of black box ones like PMax or ASC on Meta. They are performing very well right now, but who knows how they're going to perform in the future.
Yeah, got to make sure that you can keep the data that you need without taking too much away from the users for them.
Exactly. Data is the new gold.
Data's the new gold. We need to figure out how to use it best.
Exactly.
All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And I look forward to talking with you more in the future.
Thank you, Sam. It was a great pleasure.